Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond, broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
As we continue with that, there's a bunch of stuff we're going in. I want to find out how many of you all here want to go into the military. Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you all here want to become professionals, lawyers, doctors? How many of you here want to become entrepreneurs? Okay. How about entrepreneurs or solopreneurs? Listen, the workforce and what I see in front of me is to see a bunch of great leaders in the near future. I want you guys to continue moving forward, because 10 years from now, you guys are going to be leading everybody forward. Okay? Most of everybody else that you see up here sitting down and up here will probably be rocking a wheelchair and looking at sunsets. Okay? People come and people go. And we have to keep our community strong, our country strong, and of course our state strong. And with that being said, the only way you can continue, especially in business, if you do not have a word, do not have a business. People will not flock. I don't care whether your product is a best. If you have no word, you change the price on somebody, back deal somebody, I guarantee you, not going to have that person. You're going to have a new person down the street. It all revolves in one thing. Go back to that handshake. To understand what that is. Okay? Because that is what we present to others. Next in line is a person that has fought for a lot of your rights. A person that continually fights for your rights. Somebody that has become a leader not only of this community, but of the and I want you all to give a good hand of applaud to our Texas State Representative.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me back there?
Well, you know, when we started this project, now we're sitting down, we're talking, what is missing? And I said, well, you know, some of the stuff is missing that I see at the school is kids don't know how to 8-year-old boys don't know how to shake hands, 10-year-old lads don't know how to shake hands. So, you know what, let's see if we can bring something like that. But I want to thank you for fighting for all this, for everybody. And touch a little bit about the importance of a handshake, especially in legislation.
Let me tell you, before I have to take a minute just to say I'm very proud of the first speaker we had up here. Well, since he was a kid. Paul didn't mention. Grew up in Benavides. Anybody here town of Benavides? The town of Benavides? Raise your hand if you've been to the town of Benavides. But no, not you. Yeah, the Palacios down. Have you heard of Hemmerville? Right? Hemmerville? Yeah, another 26 miles that way. 24, okay. It's Benavides, town of 1,900 people, and that's where he grew up. And so you keep that in mind that he did so much coming from such a small town. And I grew up there too, right? So I watched him. I was telling him and his family a minute ago that I still remember seeing him running by my house, you know, training. Since he was a very young man, and extremely proud of how successful he was, and his whole family, his sister, just outstanding. And I'm so glad that Palacios and mom here. And I remember her dad very, very well. Just want to talk about, a family who probably didn't realize they inspired so many others. It inspired us with dedication, hard work, their determination. I think he said it right when he said never kind of quit, give up. And he never gave up. And I just have to say that, Paul, because for me, watching someone come from a little town like that and do so well and represent really the ideals of this whole country, I think it's a good example for all of you. Some of you may think, well, Laredo, from Laredo, and I think Laredo's not a big place. You guys are from the big city. So many opportunities that some of us didn't have when we were out in smaller towns. You have tremendous opportunities. And Paul about doing something to get some of the students here in town. Think about what the responsibilities are and how you progress and how you do well. Everyone, I look here, and I know that every single one of you do well in life. And Paul is right. Really so much of it is that handshake. You meet somebody. I ran for office, right? 30 years ago. I first started 30 years ago. 30. I don't even know what 30 is. I mean, it's like half. Twice your age. Right? Most of them. But when I started campaigning, I ran in 25 little towns. This is before I represented Laredo. Before I ran here, I represented 25 little towns. Going up to strangers, people I've never met before. And if I had gone up to them and just said, how you doing, Andrew Raymond? I'm running for state representative. As opposed to, how you doing, Richard Raymond? I'm running for state representative. And you get that hand. I mean, that made all the difference in the world. And so, for all of you, as you begin with your journey in life, when you meet somebody, boy, girl, young man, every year, another young lady, so that guy, whatever, shake hands, because there's an instant connection to that person, and it tells them that you have confidence. It takes some confidence. Let me tell you something. When you're going and knocking on the door in Three Rivers, Texas, and you don't know anybody there, or you're knocking on the door in Pleasanton, Texas, and you don't know anybody there, or you're knocking on the door in Alice, Texas, or I bet you born, you don't know anybody. They open the door and you see them, and you offer your hand, and they take your hand and take your hand. It sends an instant message of your confidence and your genuine interest in that other person. And the only way you're going to succeed in life is that you have a real interest in other people. That's the way it works. You have to have an interest in other people. Other people that you work with, that you associate with, that you train with, dream with, that you sort of figure out what you can do as a team. Not necessarily just an athletic, but as a team in taking on any project in life. So it really starts with that handshake in my business as a state representative of Austin at the Capitol. You can imagine 30 years. I've met a lot of state representatives. The average state representative serves for 6 years. So on average, they're going to be there 6 years. I got elected 30 years ago. That's a lot of time there. So I've met a lot of people come and go. Every 2 years we get a new legislation. And just now, we just started a couple of weeks ago. We have 27 new members. Today I was standing there talking to a guy from Houston. I didn't know him before he got elected. We stood there talking to him and started with that handshake, and so through the years, that handshake has shown me it is so important. And the trust we have, even when we disagree, at the time, of course, we're going to disagree, but you earn that trust with other, in my case, with other state representatives, state senators, governors, etc. Because you shake hands and it makes that connection. I can tell you, if you stand there in front of somebody and you don't shake their hand, you don't even offer it, that it sends an immediate signal, right? That, oh, something's wrong here. The opposite of that is when you do offer that handshake. And it's such a simple gesture, and I'm really glad that Paul wanted to talk about it in those terms. It's such a simple again, as you said at the beginning, whether it's someone who's a custodian, whether it's someone who's a nurse, whether it's someone who's driving a bus, whether it's someone who is a doctor, so no matter what it is, that handshake is so important. This morning I was walking on Capitol, and I turned and I don't give them your ID, get up to the Capitol now, you scan your ID, and go in. And I turned and there's DPS troopers, we have DPS troopers at the entrance, and I don't know, God knows forever, and looked at me. Welcome back. We shook hands. And so again, it's a simple but very powerful gesture. And you start whatever you want to do in life. Every one of them.
So we did a process.
And you start with those simple things and being able to connect with other people.
We just ask.
You build a trust.
Every
They trust you.
country would take us, right?
And you understand, you trust them, or you can't
A
trust
third of our
them.
family.
Their hand, probably not trust them very well, but it tells you something about that other person. I know it's a Friday, I know you all probably have a lot of stuff you want to be doing, but I'm really, really happy to see so many young people in here. All of you can do really well, including you back there nodding your head and taking United. All of you can do really well. You start off with a good handshake.
Handshake, the great barrier as we were talking about, and I can imagine in legislation between Democrats and Republicans, and you go straight to handshake, and we become best of friends. Sometimes as a person that has a mean face, that's a great smile. We have to understand that. And so what you all need in the future.
Can I give you a good example of that? Because you said that. So when I don't know, maybe my second or third term, there was a state rep that was ahead of me. He'd been there already. Fred Hill from Richardson, Texas. So Fred Hill was a very, very conservative Republican. I'm a Democrat. Very conservative Republican. Fred Hill from Richardson, Texas, part of Dallas, the Dallas area. And very, very conservative. Never smiled. Hardly ever smiled. And so a lot of members of the talk, right? I didn't care. No, I don't talk to everybody, but it's just the way I'm every time I got here today. And so I ended up talking to him, and we got along, and we would break sometimes for lunch. We don't break lunch. We broke for lunch today, and there were like 4 or 5 of us standing there. We would go eat lunch. Walk down the Congress Avenue, and I said, "Hey, Brett, don't come eat with us. Why don't you come eat with us, man?" He said, "You sure?" "Yeah, man, come on, come eat with us." So he went and ate with us, and we became friends. So about 4 years later, maybe 5 years later, we had a bill on the floor of the House, and it was to create the Cancer Institute for the state of Texas. This would be the most significant, and it is now the most.
Tucson, Arizona is not very diverse.
But we had to have
It's predominantly white. You have,
couldn't be just 76, 115 state reps that will pass the bill, and then it would vote. But sometimes
so it's pretty much,
constitutional now, you have to have 100 votes out of 100. That's a lot. It's hard to get there. So we had that bill, and it was a $10 billion bill to begin research, more research and prevention to help educate people to prevent from getting cancer in the first place. This was a really, really big deal. It was a very close vote over 99 votes. We need one more vote. We need 100 votes. And Fred Hill, very, very conservative, didn't like the way the votes were, thought that it was, needed some more say over, and so on and so forth. But one more vote to get 100 votes. And I went, shook his hand, I put my arm around his neck, and I said, Fred, we passed Fred this day, thousands of lives. Well, yeah, I'm concerned, but it's fine. We probably have another bill to make it even better. This is our opportunity to begin investing $10 billion in the state, thousands and thousands of lives. I said, Fred, you won't be one of the didn't pass. He voted yes. That established the Cancer Research and Prevention Institute. It's one of the greatest in the world. And it was because it all started with that first handshake when I first met him. He was smiling, like I said, but we became great friends. And I always respected it. I always appreciated that friendship could move that very conservative Republican to be that 100 vote that made the difference in passing that cancer research and prevention research institute. And then after that, he and I worked on several projects together. And here he was, a conservative Republican, because I got to know him. I knew that he grew up poor. He grew up poor in California, lived in public housing. And so here was someone who, although he was very conservative Republican, I found him very interested in trying to help with the homeless issue, trying to help people figure out a way to be able to have housing and be able to provide homes and so forth. Because when he was growing up, he didn't have any of that. He was poor. And when people would look at him and say, well, you're conservative Republican, and well, I knew that he got to know him. I knew that he was interested in that. And so we built that friendship and alliance and passed legislation in that, had to do with housing and homelessness. So it really does all start with a handshake. When you said that, when you told me that, I said, it's so simple, but it's so powerful. And all of you here can do well in life, and it will start with looking somebody else in the eye, shaking their hand, and telling them who you are, and what you want to do, and what you can do together. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That's something that teaches many out there, because you sometimes go across the boundaries, you start looking for the next location you're gonna open up, the next school you're gonna be going to. A lot of folks don't understand. So how many of you here have moved from town to town? None. Everybody was born in Laredo and raised in Laredo? Okay. Several, you don't understand what happens when you're a kid and you're moving down. We moved all over. The best thing I ever got with my uncle was to go out and shake. You shake hands, you make friends. Some of those friends that I made in 6th grade, little we're still friends now. And some of them in multiple Maryland, we're still friends. Why? Because we kept those friendships alive. You never know. Okay.
Can I jump in and give you a couple of them? More than 30 years ago, working on a campaign was far around. I'm at a campaign with this candidate who was running for the U.S. Senate. It was all over the state. I went to 210 counties in a year campaigning. And I met people back kind of I know today. Remember, I met this young guy that was running for county commissioner in Houston, and it was just a little picnic deal. And so he was standing next to me, and I was 22 years old, and I started talking to him. He didn't win, right? But then 2 years later, he got elected state rep, and I got elected state rep. And now he's the mayor of Houston, one of my dearest friends. After I've been in the legislature a while, another young man come in, sat behind me on the floor of the house. Smart guy, came from nothing, education. And I started mentoring him. You've been around a while, you talk to other members, whatever. Share some of your experience and knowledge, just like we still call him Palacios. He was talking about share that knowledge. And so I looked out for him, I helped him out, smart guy and all, and said, we had a chance to Mayor Dallas, and I can give you examples like that. Through the years, people that we meet, I met so long ago, right, that now have gone on to do other great things again, and that I'm still close to because of those friendships that you formed, and many of them, even before I ran for office, they ran for office, people that you meet in life. And, it just building those relationships can last you a lifetime and can have really enough meaning to last a whole lifetime.
Also, those words of encouragement, because we've become very, very good friends in the last 20 years. We worked on one project, like might help everybody.
Well, I'll just say quick, Paul, I love to hear from people that, have ideas on things that we can do in the legislature. And, I'm not gonna think of all the ideas, no one person will. It's all of you who come up with ideas, things that you see that are going on or that they would do better. And so, Paul, I've been in probably 4 years now. We started talking about some laws that exist that needed to be made better to help children. We were started at it last year, year before last session. We were able to pass that bill in the House of Representatives. Didn't quite make it. If you remember this, you learned that you got to pass it in the House and the Senate, both, right? First to come along, the governor's got to sign it. So it almost passed in the Senate, it didn't. We reintroduced that bill. Now I have a bunch of senators that are pushing the bill on the Senate side. We're going to bring House side, and I feel very confident that bill's probably going to pass. It's going to affect a lot of lives, and help a lot of young people. They have better chance at great relations with both of their parents, and that all started because Paul was he's not a politician, not a politics. But he just called me one day and said, I want to talk to you about something. We sat down, we talked about it, and then we talked to other people around the state. We had several meetings in Austin. We brought in people from all over the state. We built support. We came up with an idea for people that didn't like it. And after a while, we got the Laredo City Council, passed resolutions supporting it. And then at first, the city of Dallas didn't like it, the Houston didn't like it, San Antonio, and over time, the more they looked at like, we wouldn't like this bill. So now the city of Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, we're all supporting the bill that started because Paul picked up the phone that we got to do something to help kids have a better life. And we came up with this idea. So, anybody can do it. It's don't give up, never give up. Don't give up on your dreams. Don't give up on your ideas and your ideals, right? And every one of you really gets to decide how you want to do in life. Y'all get to decide that. We don't. You get to decide it. Mr. Palacios over there decided. His sister decided, and they've all done really well. I decided when I was a kid. See, I'm like Brad. I just made one decision. I wanted to be, Tom Brady. Tom Brady. I wanted to be Tom Brady. I'll be the greatest quarterback ever played in the NFL. It's going to be. And I blew out my knee in the 8th grade. So I got into politics. So if you blow out your knee,